Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wait What We're Talking About podcast, episode 231. My name is Bret, aka Enigma911, and you can catch this podcast live over on twitch.tv/Enigma911, where we go live. You can join in on the fun and conversation. If you drop a follow over there, you'll get notified. But if you can't catch live, that's A-OK. Go over to YouTube and podcast services the very next week, where it's broken out topic by topic and puts one big video and MP3 for your amusement on the following Friday. Not last but not least, any way you can support the show, like, share, subscriptions, all that jazz. It may seem small, but it does help the channel grow. So if you take the time to do that, we would love and appreciate you for it. Hi. Hope everybody's having a good holiday break. Hope everybody's enjoying their time, whether it's solo, with family, with friends, whatever it may be. It is that time of the year. All the game of the year talk, stuff like that, reviewing your year. So we're flying solo this year, but we're going to be talking about what I played this year from my backlog to games from this year, as well as titles I'm looking forward to that are coming up maybe next year or after that, unfortunately, and maybe some things that we did miss. So we're going to be diving into all these titles. Obviously not talking everything I played in the year. That would take 5 ever, surprisingly. But we'll talk highlights here and there of what we played throughout the year, maybe show you guys some stuff that you guys didn't even know about, or maybe help you pick your next game or something down the line, and then we'll get to the fun stuff of game of the year. So we're going to jump into backlog / didn't really fully come out this year games first, I guess second, because first we're going to talk about games that we did miss out on, and maybe I should keep that for the second one because that's game of the year. What do I want to do? Organization's hard. You know what? Yeah, let's do the backlog first, and then we'll talk about missed titles, so you kind of know going into this year's releases why they're not included, and we'll go from there. I know what I'm doing. All right, let's jump on into the list of backlog games. So there's a few just I want to hit kind of quickly off the bat, just games that I kind of played throughout the year or kind of hit numerous years. But I have Pokemon Arceus, Marvel Snap, and Fortnite. We've talked about Fortnite a lot. Jump back into it from time to time. I will say I'm playing it a bit less than I have in previous years, and I think it's just kind of getting to that point with that game. Not that it's bad or it's disinteresting. It's just kind of losing steam. Lady and I haven't played it as much. There just has been some seasons that haven't really clicked with us. The current season that's going on right now with their like samurai theme has been really interesting to dive into that map. But the previous one with the Greek stuff and the gods, it was like some things are interesting, some things aren't. And then the battle passes have been lackluster. I know they've been doing... Coming up here, Moose? No. They've been doing a few more guest characters, which is nice, but I feel like the original content that Epic has put out for those passes hasn't been as enticing as the previous entries and season passes. So that's been a little unfortunate. Also, it's getting a little bit more expensive, which I get because they're getting all these licensed characters. But Epic has so much money. They're, have no issues there. So do they really need to bump up the Battle Pass price to give the players less? No. So that's a little disheartening. Man, this cat does not want to decide if he wants to come up here or just yell at me or whatever he's doing. Okay, anyways. Along similar lines would be Marvel Snap. Just the only thing on that is Marvel Snap I've been playing pretty consistent all year. I think there was a small gap in the summer, but outside of that, it's been something I've been able to jump into, maybe play while I'm watching, a series on TV or whatnot. Play it, come in, get the quick matches there. I've enjoyed pretty much most of the seasons that they have put out. If I do decide to get their season pass for that. But I also like that you're not locked into really you have to get it or you're missing out. If you're not feeling a season, you're not feeling a season. No big deal. So that's been a good one to play. And play more of the multiplayer with friends with that game. And figure out different strategies and mess around with that. Usually Destroy deck is my go-to. I've been messing around a little bit more with the Movement deck. Discard is still something that clicks with me fully. But yeah, just fun to play that. And then Pokemon Arceus, this seems to be my go-to around the holidays. I still need to beat this game. I keep jumping back in. Every time I jump back in, I restart it, and I enjoy my time with it. It's just, it doesn't stick around. But shout out to it. I do really enjoy my time with it. And the gameplay mechanics there, we've talked about it previous years as well. Of just like, it's different, but it's actually really enjoyable how they do all the catching mechanics and all that jazz in comparison to like your traditional Pokemon games. But just want to give it a shout out here. Like I said, it's definitely something I go back to around this time. Maybe I'll do it again this year. Who knows? So moving on, I did try out Baldur's Gate 3 this year. I was playing it on stream for a while. Shout out to Turn-Based TJ. He used some channel points to redeem it. So we did give it a shot. Really enjoyed Baldur's Gate. I know I was late to the party, obviously, with it being Game of the Year. For the Game Awards or at the Game Awards last year. So playing it this year, late to the party. But another one I didn't make it all the way through. Jeez. But played a little bit here and there for streams. Really enjoyed my time with it. Enjoyed the flexibility with all of the story play elements and the characters, and obviously the amount of freedom that Larian had designed into the game. I had just reached a point where, unfortunately, the avenue I wanted to take was not an avenue available to me, and I got a little frustrated with that in terms of there's all these crazy things you can do in terms of freedom, whether it's talking to certain animals or really going about your way to strategize and do something without even getting in a combat altercation with bigger groups of people. There was that flexibility, and for something that I thought was a good strategy, and we've talked about it on multiple podcasts, whether it was Big John joined the podcast or back even before that when I kind of wrapped up Baldur's Gate, for something I thought was a pretty logical process for me to go through, try and do to make peace with something, wasn't an option, and I didn't get rewarded for thinking outside the box or taking those means to really make sure that I wasn't messing something up. And then it didn't happen. It just was like, that along with the difficulty spike I had hit at that point, just kind of hit a wall with it. I was like, nah, I'm good. Something I do want to go back to and try, maybe on my own, not on stream. That could have been also an element there where I felt not pressured, obviously, but it's a performance. Oh boy, that sounds weird. Performance, you got to do a stream, but obviously you're a little bit more active during the live streams, where sometimes you want to just kind of take your time, and for games like this with the role-playing games, just kind of not zone out, but you really want to focus on those types of things or those elements of the game and go from there. Come up here, Moose. Everybody wants to see you. They love you. So shout out to Baldur's Gate 3. Just quick shout out. This was the first year I went to PAX East. Hope to do it this coming year, but we'll see. But just a quick shout out to the games that I did play there. We had Hell of an Office, Chicken Police, Ollie Frog, Toad Skater, which absolutely love, Right to Bear Arms, Part of You, Corgi Cozy Hike, Dark and Deep, Anton Blast, and Juice. We also jumped into Venture of the Vile, which did come out this year, but cool experience to jump into those games, talk to the devs a little bit more about their experience in making it, and just their journey in making the games and getting it out for, in our hands in the general public beyond just the early access test. So that was cool. And speaking of early access, Steam Next Fest demos as well. There was a bunch there. Hell's Gate, Cat Needs, Anti-Paint, Doodle Harmony, Ghost, Crash Course Builder, Artificer's Tower, Pepper Grinder, Push a Block, Kill a Million Rats, Tiny Town, and Angerfoot. I know some of those got their full releases this year as well, across numerous consoles. So if any of those caught your attention or eye, go check those out. Okay, surprising one. Final Fantasy VII OG. I finally jumped into that. Did I finish it? No, I'm awful. No, I was doing great. I kept jumping into it, playing. I got out of Midgard, excuse me, and got into the fields, got where you need to kind of wrangle a chocobo, and that's where I stopped. Yikes! I think what was coming up was I was supposed to play Remake on stream. That didn't last super long either. And I was like, well, I want to kind of make it through OG first so I can see what the comparisons are from the original, what's changed with Remake, go from there. And I really enjoyed my time with it in comparison to past attempts, which I think I've talked about on stream as well, perhaps with Jeff. But yeah, it was just me being dumb and like, ooh, what's the next thing? I'm, go on to the next thing. Don't be focused and finish this. But I did enjoy my time with Final Fantasy VII OG. I'm curious, because I don't know where Remake ends. I'm curious if the point I got in original was the point of completion of Remake. If maybe I should bounce back and forth between them, the original and Remake. Probably not a good idea. I know Rebirth came out this year. But yeah, just wanted to shout that out. Enjoyed it, but did a bad job keeping up with it. All right. Another one I shot out is Cult of the Lamb. Came out a few years ago. 2 years ago? I don't know. And I played it through solo back then because I was very excited for it, and it was a great game. But Lady in Wonderland wanted to play it, so we ended up playing co-op. It was conveniently, she wanted to play it right around the time that the co-op update came out with the GOAT. So we played that through all the way together. That was fun. They had a lot of free updates. I realized that I never jumped into. So like the Midas Gold edition was in there. I think the Sin update had come out not too much longer before. So there's a lot of new mechanics that we got to mess around with as well. So it was nice to have new gameplay stuff to myself, as well as obviously the mechanics that I had known from the first playthrough. Kept that interesting for me instead of just being like, yep, I'm here. But we put a lot of time into that. I don't think it got to my top 5 for PlayStation Wrapped, but it was up there. We put a decent amount of time into that. Speaking of putting a decent amount of time into stuff, also put a decent amount of time into Vampire Survivors, which I'm actually skipping ahead, so never mind. I didn't say that. What else did we play that came out in previous years? Sorry, I got like 3 lists ahead of me. My one giant list, because I'm old and I can't remember things, so I keep a list on my phone of like, what did I play this year? What did I beat? What came out this year? And then I have it separated out to like, these are backlog titles, this is game of the year. So if you see me looking across the screen here, that's why. So I do apologize. Finally tried Celeste. Someone's chatty. Finally tried Celeste out this year. Another one. Dumb me getting distracted and not finishing the game there. But did play that. Made it a few levels through and then shared the experience with Justin at Inverted Lantern, who's been on the podcast before. It seems like he got really into it, and I believe he did beat it and play it all the way through. So that was just a nice experience of like, obviously me enjoying the game, but then also showing it to someone else and having them have a great time with it as well. That was nice. I don't know, made me happy. When you realize your list isn't complete, because I could think of a game that's not on here. Speaking of indies that I got to the party late and kind of passed on as well to others is Dredge, which, yeah, I guess I just did not put that in my list. I don't know why. No, it's right there. I don't know where I went with this one. Oh, I know why it's not in here. Because it's in beaten games. That makes sense. Dredge. Yes, we did beat Dredge. Played that on stream during Spooky Time, during October. Man, what a great fishing game. I didn't think fishing games could be as fun as Dredge is. But it's a blast to just go through, upgrade the boat, kind of discover what the hell is even going on in this area. Not just with the creepy fish, but with all the people around. You have your main town in the center that you're trying to help out with the fisherman duties, but then you have these 4 regions surrounding it that each have like their own little miniature conundrum that you have to help with that, figure out what's going on there, whether it's healing a brother's relationships, saving a crashed war veteran who has their plane crashed there, a random underwater like researcher, and then a fucking cult just up in one corner. Going through all of that to then also learn what kind of twisted things are also going on around everywhere with this man in his book. I had a great time with Dredge. I know there's some DLC out there. I think the Iron Rig DLC dropped this year. I don't know if I'll jump into it. I'm weird with DLC where if I feel like I've kind of gotten that check mark of like, yep, I'm satisfied with this experience, sometimes I don't really feel like diving into the DLC, especially if it comes out later. Granted, this stuff's already out, so I'm not sure. We'll have to see if I do eventually dive into it. But Dredge was an amazing time. I really had a fun time going around there. And then I know Blue Mudhorn has delved into it as well, and he beat it in no time. So cool once again to share that experience. Shootout. I mean, it's a shooting game. Shout out to Super Animal Royale once again. Or not once again, but as well. This was one I jumped into during Extra Life, and it was a lifesaver during those late hours of the 24-hour stream. Another one that's been out for quite some time. I feel like it's been out maybe 3 years more. Top-down battle royale where you're all cute little animals, and you are aiming with your joystick. It's like a twin-stick shooter almost. And just very simple battle royale. Very fun. There's a lot of animal types that you can unlock, customize your character with, which is very rewarding. A little grindy, for sure, but I don't feel like the games or matches last ever super duper long, so it's not something where you're going to put all this work in, and then it just kind of drags on. But just wanted to give that a shout out for how fun it was during Extra Life. Same with Power Wash Simulator. Jump back into that. I know that was a highly regarded game of mine last year, so not going to spend too much time on it, but I can't recommend Power Wash Simulator enough. Seems silly, like just washing things, and whether it's vehicles or parks or houses or whatever, seems like a very silly concept as a game of like, yeah, that's going to be a rewarding experience, but it most definitely is. Those little pings when you get different elements cleaned up makes the endorphin rush. And completing, or seeing rather, your completed job when you're done, whether it's just you by looking around being like, damn, I cleaned all of this, or at the very end seeing like the not fast forward, I guess it is, that fast quick playback of your whole experience. That's always fun to see too. So shout out to Power Wash. Next one we got is Black Myth Wukong, one we're currently streaming over on Twitch. At least we were in the month of December. I think I'll probably still have a bit left for January. Enjoying my time with that. Wait a minute, Black Myth came out this year. Someone didn't copy it over. God damn it. These lists are not organized. Whoop. Scratch that again. Brother. Let's see what else we got in the backlog. Fallout 4. We finally beat that on stream. Another one of the Fallout series that kind of dipped my toes in here and there. I had a good time going through Fallout 4 in its entirety, along with Ghostwire Tokyo. Tried out the OG Saints Row. Not OG, but the remake of Saints Row 1. Not as bad as everybody kind of made it out to be, I feel. When it first came out, I think it was a good time. It definitely did not have the character that I feel like 3 and 4 had, for example. So that was probably something that went against it. But all in all, it was an okay game. I had a good time with it. It was one of those, as we love to talk about, turn your brain off and just kind of go with games. So I had a fun time with that. Similar, I replayed Saints Row 4. We have some funny ones here. One I actually just beat yesterday because it's a short and sweet experience. Started at Extra Life, played it fresh from the start, but Turnip Boy commits tax evasion. Yep, you heard me right. Turnip Boy commits tax evasion. Fun little indie here, top down. I guess you could say Metroidvania. Not really Metroidvania. What would you call it? I don't know. It's like a lot of fetch questy. Hey, I need this. And then you go do that thing and solve a puzzle here. And then you go to this one, do that thing. Da, 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 da. And you're doing these little tasks for the mayor because guess what? You committed tax evasion. So now you got to kind of make up for it. So you're doing these little tasks, going around, doing other tasks for villagers. Shorter game, I'd say maybe 3 hours, maybe 4 if you're really struggling. But I had a fun time with it. There's a lot of funny comedy moments in there. And surprisingly, a story twist. Wouldn't expect that with that game. There is a sequel out called Turnip Boy Robs a Bank, which I think I've heard has a little bit more different gameplay mechanics. I believe it's a roguelite. I don't know for sure, but I want to jump into that. Unfortunately, that's not on my preferred console just yet. I don't know if it's planned to be on it. Worst comes to worst, I'll pick it up on Steam. But definitely money's worth there. It was a fun time. No. All right. Also, quick, just touch base here. Played through Super Mario Sunshine for the first time all the way through. That got frustrating at points with the platforming. Went back and did Ghostwire Tokyo. Had a great time there. Saving the city in Tokyo and hunting down these ghosts and whatnot. Replayed A Little to the Left, organizational game and puzzle game that has an occasional cat that will mess with you. Brotato took up a lot of my time this year. I'm kind of ashamed it took, not took, because I haven't beaten it entirely, but put 100 hours into that game this year. Very satisfying if you liked Vampire Survivors, which I alluded to earlier. You are just a little egg dude, even though it's called Brotato. I know. Little egg dude, and you power up as you go. You can have up to 6 weapons. You upgrade them and get different stat boosts, positive and negative throughout, trying to survive 20 waves of enemies. Great time there. Replayed through Mortal Kombat 1 to then eventually go through the story DLC, which we'll talk about later. Save Room I played, which is a Resident Evil-like storage simulator, so another very short one. I think that one took me an hour to get the platinum, but you're just managing your inventory. You got to fill it out, get all the items in there. All right, and then we got some heavy hitters to round out the list here. We're going to start with Lies of P. This kind of, I guess, kind of was my Souls-like year. Now, for you guys that don't know my history with Souls, I always enjoy them. I enjoy the atmosphere and the scenery and like the theming that these worlds provide and the environments, but boy do I suck at them. I always get to a certain point and then I kind of hit that rock wall and I'm like, it's getting too frustrating. I can't beat this thing. I'm just done. I think Sekiro is probably the one I made it the most farthest in. Last year, where I got to 2 bosses, there was like a poison warlock in like a underground cave, or the whole arena was poisoned or something along those lines. Couldn't beat them. And then the other boss was, I don't even remember. Nope, my memory's ass. But I had like 2 different paths I could go along, and just that was where I hit my wall eventually. But Lies of P was a little bit different. We're going to be talking about a lot of Souls, like whether it was the Backlog games or, surprisingly, the games that came out this year. But this is the first one that we're going to talk about, obviously. But Lies of P hit differently. Number one, I think, was the storytelling. With the Souls games, you obviously have the story that is going on, but for most of it, it seems like you have to really hunt it down through text or the item descriptions or just kind of other means than the game actually telling you what is going on, giving you those cinematics, those narrative moments where it's pushing its story, its narrative. And that can be a little frustrating at times, but I feel like Lies of P delivers that here, and it makes it even more satisfying to keep going, even if you're dying, to push through, battle it out, see where this story is going, see where the narrative's taking you, and I really appreciated that. And I did end up beating this one and playing it all the way through on stream, even though bosses like Lexasia and fucking King of Puppets and Romeo, even though they absolutely destroyed me. VOD up on YouTube, by the way, right now. Might even be up in full at this point. Even though those guys destroyed me and just killed me over and over and over again, I felt so motivated by seeing this narrative through that I pushed through and, got to the ending and had the little fun surprise there, which I'll keep to myself unless you want to watch the VOD. You could check that out. And just was so satisfied with the entire experience that the team and the developers did with that game. I'm looking forward to seeing what their next project is. NeoWiz hasn't even lit out a peep of what's going on. But if it's it also felt pretty welcoming in terms of a newbie. So if this is a genre that you've been wanting to get into, I think while this still has a lot of challenge, I think this is one that may be helpful. There's another one I'm going to talk about in this year's releases that for sure is a more welcoming experience. But this one, I felt like it wasn't impossible as in compared to others. So I would definitely highly recommend it and enjoyed my time with Liza P. Another one I want to talk about here is Resident Evil 4 Remake. We've talked about RE in the past and my history with it, with RE7 being my first, and kind of bouncing around with RE2 Remake, RE3 Remake, Resident Evil 8, and now RE4 Remake. Another one I had a great time with, Ashley, learning how to deal with her and manage her along this journey was interesting. Not as scary as some other Resident Evils, certainly had moments, but I felt overall not too bad. More focused on the action side of things in comparison to the earlier remakes, which makes sense. But I had a good time jumping through that. If you want to check out that full playthrough, those VODs are over on YouTube, so you can check that all out. But I had a blast with RE4 Remake. And this was one, I had so much fun with it. I delved right back into it after we were done on stream and started playing it again off stream, just to go through, kind of get the rest of the collectibles, get different weapons that I hadn't purchased yet, and things of that nature. Unfortunately, I have fallen off of that since then, but for like a week or two, I was on that grind and almost played it all the way through again. Using primarily the pistol. But yeah, I had a blast with it. Next one I was looking really forward to in the past. Started, I think, launch day, and then just kind of dipped off just because the passion wasn't there for it. But I'm glad I gave it another try. It was my distraction game around November time. If you get it, you get it. And it definitely did its job, and I wrapped it up not too long ago, but I'm talking about Jedi Survivor. Absolutely loved Jedi Fallen Order, and I think I can say the same for Jedi Survivor. I continue the narrative here with Cal and the kind of few year gap between Fallen Order and this one, so he's gone on and is tackling his path, but eventually you reconvene with your ragtag group of friends from the first game, see how they've been living during this time and what they've been going after. So that was rewarding, getting those reunions with those characters and just falling right back into those relationships with Cal, and you could see what it meant to him, like to have them as family, but also seeing just in general Cal's journey throughout this game. It's a nice 3-act structure, at least it felt that way, where you have the initial, obviously, build of the story, what's going on here. The second middle section where you're tackling this evil and trying to get the advantage, heading into Act 3 where it may have things happen and you need to come to gather your strength and, come back even stronger to overtop the evils that are ahead of you. Had a great time with it. I usually don't get too much into cosmetics with these games. It's going to sound silly, but I like having it be the skins or the attire that the developers wanted there. So, for example, like Spider-Man, I often don't customize my Spider-Man with his suit all that often until post-game where I'm doing all the cleanup. I'll typically just run with the suits that they give me. Jedi Survivor, I thought that was what I was going to do, but I kind of ended up changing Cal as he went through his journey. So he kind of had his base look at the beginning. The next part, I gave him like a top bun and a little bit more of a Jedi look as part of the council. And then at the end, I gave him like a full, like not rags to riches, but like what's the word? Not retribution. I guess that's the right word. Clean cut, real clean armor looking, also kind of Jedi garb with a different color set. So I changed how he looked the entire time, and I changed the lightsaber. I think I talked about it in the individual podcast that I talked about Jedi Survivor. I wish you could set presets with the lightsabers so you can have all these different ones. But it was really, I think it really added to the experience to customize him throughout that journey. And this is the first time I've had an experience like that where I felt like that was not rewarding, but worthwhile of my time to put in the time to customize him and kind of get more into the role-playing aspect, I guess you could say. So Jedi Survivor, absolutely loved. Hated that I waited so long to play it, but a good time there. I think I have one more that I want to shout out here. One more indie title. It's Born of Bread from Wild Art Games. Kind of like a a Paper Mario like, from what I've heard from others. You have your different characters, turn-based combat, go through, solve puzzles. Little Metroidvania here and there where you're going back and forth between areas, but a fun story overall. I wanted to shout this one out because it was a lot of fun, a little buggy here and there, but sadly Wild Art Studios has not closed permanently, but they're not full-time anymore, and that's too bad. They just couldn't, unfortunately, sustain themselves. So I did want to give this team a shout and this game. If you like Paper Mario, you like the turn-based combat, you just want some cute artwork and some great characters with a good story, this is a game I highly recommend. Not super long as well. I'd say maybe an 8 to 10, that kind of range. But I had a blast with it. It's something I'm still chasing towards the platinum here and there and getting 100%. But I've had an amazing time playing it throughout. So just wanted to shout out Born of Bread there. So in general, or overall, I think those were the standouts for the backlog / last year's games that I happened to play this year. I'm just going to quickly scroll through, see if there's anything else that does catch my attention that I want to give a quick shout to that I haven't already. I think I've hit most of them, but just in case, doesn't hurt to double check. Nah, I think we hit all of them. Yeah. So what is my game of the year in terms of backlog titles? What's the one that stood out amongst the rest as like something that I really enjoyed? I think it's Lies of P. I think Lies of P is going to take it here. Once again, being the first Souls game that I have played all the way through, jumped back in with a new game plus to try and do things differently, collect all the other stuff that I didn't get, do the lie run. I just had an amazing time, and once again, what they set up here with their narrative and rewarding the player by showing that narrative as you go along and not make them hunt for it, and what is on the docket for an eventual sequel, I'll just say that, has me so excited to see what this team does. I remember when Lies of P was first announced, maybe Game Awards, maybe Summer Games Fest, I don't know. I was just like, that's ridiculous. A Pinocchio game and it's Souls. Oh my God, this is going to be idiotic. but to actually jump into it, it has been an amazing experience. So Lies of P is going to take Game of the Year for me for the backlog games. Great time.